Welcome to the Future is Bilingual podcast. Today I have part 2 of my interview with Marcin. So if you haven't already listened to part 1, I highly suggest going back and listening to that episode first because he introduces himself and tells you a lot about his language learning journey in part 1. Today we dive right into the conversation, talking about the differences between learning language on your own versus learning it in a classroom with a teacher. He talks about a typical day for him and how he uses languages. He also gives a lot of good tips throughout for how to add your target language into your everyday life to help you learn it more. He talks about his motivation, how he keeps himself motivated to learn different languages. And finally, we delve into what he's gained from learning other languages and what our big hopes are for the future and why we think learning languages is so important for all people, but especially for the youth and the young and the kids that are going to be our future one day. So I hope you enjoy this second and final part of our interview. And this will be the end of season 1, and we'll be back with more episodes in September. All right. Did you ever take a formal German class, or was it all self-taught?
No, it was always self-taught. I never have. And one of the issues that I see was that, when I'm doing Duolingo in French, because I have the basics from, even though it's many years ago, like they're still in my brain somewhere, I will get the grammar correct more often than not. And even though I speak more German than I do French, I have a harder time getting the grammar correctly all the time, or at least, equivalent amount of the time. And I think that's where, at this point where I am, like maybe having a little more of a formal structure would help. But yeah, I haven't. And I have a coworker who is, his dad is a native German speaker, and when he was growing up, his dad would speak German to the kids, but then he didn't really follow through with it. But in the end, he did come around to learning German, and he spent a semester abroad. So he speaks German. He speaks Chinese through a different, so he's interesting from that perspective too, because he has 3 languages, but so sometimes I'll speak with him, but we'll speak about German more than we would speak German. And that's probably mostly because, one, we've always spoken English, and sometimes making that switch is hard, especially if you're not, comfortable in that language, which I'm really not. And also because I'm so out of practice with it, or never really had much practice to begin with. So I end up speaking to him about German a lot, but not necessarily in German. And there used to be one family that would come over, a father and a kid, and they were German speakers, so I would speak to the kid in German.
It's fun, yeah.
But that's
it is hard to find German speakers around here, so you probably know more of them. I don't know any.
I know a few. None of them. I'm not close enough with any of them to feel comfortable to, meet up and just practice German.
So I think it is interesting. I put a poll on the Future is Bilingual Instagram story the other day about, is it better to learn, on your own just by listening, or is it better to have a teacher? Because I feel the same way as you. I did a lot of years of French, but I just know it so well.
Yeah.
I'll read, native people are writing things, on Instagram or wherever, and I'm seeing all these errors because there's a lot of silent letters and they'll put the wrong silent letter. And it just drives me crazy. But I just I know so much, whereas in Polish I have had a few classes, but they were here and there, sporadic. And I've done just a lot of years of just listening and doing things on my own, and I do feel like I'm missing a lot of, I can still get the grammar, but I'm so many years behind that I'm how many years of errors have I been just repeating or thinking that this is the right way?
Right.
And now I'm learning there's this whole other, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just many complicated things that I almost wish. I do see a very it's very valuable to have this academic structure, even though people always, and I'm also kind of, it's personal since I was a high school teacher, but people are always saying
Yeah.
like, yeah, you take all these years of language in school and I can't say a word, or took this many
Mhm.
years of Spanish or French and I can't use it at all. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not necessarily the school's fault. How much
Yeah.
were you putting in? I feel like
Yeah.
people expect that your teacher is going to teach you and you're going to become fluent. And it's the people who become fluent. I did teach everything from Spanish 1 to French AP.
Yeah.
And the students that I had that did become fluent put so much effort in at home. And they would watch films and YouTube and listen to music. And they were putting in, you have to put in the effort. You can't just expect to take a
Yeah.
15-minute class 5 times a week and become fluent. But
No.
I
And
do see the value in having someone who can teach you a lot of the grammar. They help you with vocab. There is a lot that, and oh, so the poll, everybody except for one person said you should do it on your own. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just the community that I'm
yeah.
talking to, but I do think we're kind of giving, classrooms and teachers a bad rep that maybe they don't deserve.
Oh, they definitely don't. And I'm trying to remember. I know I answered that question, but I actually don't remember what I answered. But I do remember being conflicted on it because of
Mm-hmm.
having strong feelings towards, and I've, as I said before, like I have some reservations about the way that some of it can be taught, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the teacher is bad, but they might be just
Yeah.
responsible for doing these things that might not be, necessarily the best. But
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so much to it. Like, depending on the school, they might have to use a certain curriculum or book.
yeah,
Um, there,
and also,
I mean, I was conflicted. That's why I posted the poll. Like, I
oh
wonder
yeah,
what other people think.
yeah, and I mean, I can't compare myself to you because you taught it for a number of years, but I did spend a part of a semester teaching at the university,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like I also taught. I mean, I taught Polish for a little bit to undergrads.
Mm-hmm.
First level of Polish. It was like Polish 110. Um,
Yeah.
so I also have some very limited experience from that other side of being,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from
But with
being
those, that was their first
yeah,
Polish class.
yeah, yeah, that was
Okay,
their it was Polish 110, so it was
that's good. Yeah.
yeah, introductory.
And I took an intermediate at that same university.
Yeah,
But it's just teachers, they can just do so many different things. And it's so easy. Even, I'm a very critical person. So it's
yeah,
easy to find critiques and say, oh, I wish they were doing this and this different. But I do think there's something to be said to having just, maybe it's just my brain that I need structure. I need to know like the mathematical equation of grammar. And I just, it's now, the more I learn about Polish, the more it bothers me, all the holes. Like, oh, I
yeah.
got to fill this hole in. Oh man, I didn't know about this thing. My aspect is still really like shaky. I'm like, which one is it supposed to be?
And I'm getting to
um,
that point in German, but I also look at it a little differently, maybe through a certain amount of laziness. But um, I want to skip over the part where you're learning you know, all the grammatical
mm,
structures and know it intuitively, which is how native speakers speak. They just know intuitively what's correct,
hmm
not because they have memorized the rules or memorized the exceptions and all that.
yeah,
Um,
100%.
which is why trying to ask a non-linguistic native speaker, like a non-linguist native speaker, why they do something with grammar,
They,
because they will be able to tell you.
well,
Um,
even I used to teach ESL classes, and I've studied linguistics,
yeah,
communication sciences, all these things. Um, I've taught ESL in different school settings, but I would teach this adult class, and I had a couple students that were very motivated. And even I like, and I know a lot about French grammar, and I
yeah,
was having a hard time explaining all the different, I don't know, just grammatical aspects. Like, well, why do you say we have been? Or I'm like, I don't know.
yeah,
Why? I don't we just say it.
oh yeah, and I
So it's tough. I don't know. And I've heard people have debates about whether native speakers are better teachers or non-native speakers are better teachers. And that's a whole another debate.
yeah,
Because as a non-native, like with French, I had to go through it. I can relate to my students when they're
you have to
struggling
look
with
that way.
accent and different ways of grammar being formed. And
Yeah, before you got to the level of just mastery that you were able to intuit the correct answers. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't think I was the best ESL teacher. And I knew a girl from Brazil, and I feel like I took her position at a charter school, and I would often think like, she was probably a better ESL teacher because she had to learn English, and
Uh,
I don't know how to explain this to these kids.
well, I was a tutor, like I tutored somebody, a student, a number of years before I filled in as for that teacher for that one semester. Um, and and he was well, yeah, he was very good. But he was, a non-native speaker, like he was an American who was learning Polish, um,
Mm-hmm.
of Polish descent, but he had to learn it as a non-native speaker
Not.
because he didn't get it from growing up in a Polish household. So
Mm-hmm.
so he would ask me much more advanced questions than I would get when I was teaching Polish 110. Because when I
Mm-hmm.
was teaching the class, it was like we were dealing with three cases. They were only introduced like three cases.
Yeah.
So I knew that I studied up on them to make sure I can explain why these cases are the way they are. But
Mm-hmm.
with him, he would ask about all of them, and
Right.
and at that point, I wasn't able to explain it very well at all, and I felt so bad because I felt like I was letting him down, even though he was still getting a lot out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we're both kind of self-critical in that way, where we're like, we should be
Yeah.
better for our students.
Always aiming to do better.
Yeah,
But yeah, as you know, I drive my husband crazy because I'll ask him things and he's like, I don't want to think about grammar. Like he just has
yeah.
bad memories of school and, not knowing the right answer to something. And here I come with these like same
They were
activities
like
and same, like the Polish school
all
on
these
Saturday
years
would
later.
give us photocopies of like old Polish books. And he's like, no.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
And
the
I
more
went
you know,
to,
the more you know you don't know. That's
oh,
basically
definitely. And
how I
I
feel.
mean, but the now I'm more okay with that, where I am, thinking like, oh, I
Mm,
could sit through a more rigorous structured, like more rigorously structured German grammar course, and I think I
hmm
would get a lot out of it versus years ago where I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's something like the online Polish thing I've found. There's even private tutors. I know there's lots of things like italki,
Yeah,
but the
I
thing
was.
I like is I pay for a subscription to the website, and she
Mhm.
has all sorts of like exercises, printables versus online. She does a podcast. She does YouTube now. She does all sorts of things, but
Oh yeah.
it's like included within that price, and
Mhm.
it's like the price of a cup of coffee per month,
Yeah,
so it's not expensive. It's very reasonable.
yeah, and you get a
But
lot
I
out.
like that it has a group. Yeah, because then there's other people who talk, and there's a woman in Turkey and a woman I
Oh yeah.
forget where in like Iceland and people in just all over. A lot
So
of
you
people in
bring in
England.
all the different experiences
Yeah, so I
together.
like the classroom aspect because you could do a private tutor, but I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
social. I like to talk, so I want to hear
Well,
other
all of
people.
these have, yeah, all these different ways have their strengths and their weaknesses. Um,
Yeah.
so you definitely want to have many different ways you're approaching this.
hmm Um, I want to know about because I don't even know. We're getting off topic because that's just we like to talk about languages, so that's normal for us.
Yeah, we do this
Um,
every time we meet.
tell me about a typical day and how you use your different languages.
Okay,
Like with
so
whom,
yeah, I mean, in a typical day, I'm
and it
bilingual.
could be pre-COVID when things were normal and you had people that would come into the library and things.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really much of a difference. Like I still, um, I speak Polish with my family, like with my parents, with my brother and my sister-in-law, and with my nephew and niece. Although I'm not as disciplined with that, so I'll switch back and forth. Um,
hmm
but yeah, in a group of friends, we'll generally speak Polish, but also we might go back and forth because it's just easier. We're translanguaging that way.
hmm
Um, But at work, I would normally just speak English all day. And occasionally, depending on patrons that come in, I would just switch to Polish as well. And as I said, very occasionally, I would try to speak German to some kids.
Mm-hmm.
There was on a few occasions, like I spoke some Russian to there was a mom coming with these two boys, and one time I said something to them in Russian, and the younger boy was just so shocked.
Oh,
Did not, wait, this person, how is he speaking Russian to me?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so at work I would sometimes try to use other languages, but it wouldn't be
Mhm.
very frequent. And I have one coworker who is American, but she spent 6 years, I think it was 6 years, in Spain. Um,
Wow.
she just kind of got up and moved. Um, so, she speaks Spanish, although she speaks Iberian Spanish, and we have
Hmm.
some coworkers who are from Central America. There's like one coworker from Central America. There's one coworker from Puerto Rico, and um,
Hmm.
she'll speak with them about the differences,
Yeah.
between the Spanish that they know. Um, but when I started doing some Spanish Duolingo, I would say things to her, and then she randomly did some Polish on Duolingo, so we would
Oh, fun.
exchange these languages that way. Um,
Hmm.
so
It's nice.
yeah, and then when I was more disciplined, as I was before COVID, um, when I would get home in the evening, I would do my German lessons. So I would go through, and this switched over time, but like at you know, because I travel every year now, and I've
Hmm.
been to German-speaking countries pretty much most of the year, so I would be more inspired, I guess, and motivated to learn. So I would go through my German lessons. Although last year I was going to France, so I did a lot of French lessons.
Hmm.
But
It's
those,
nice having that goal,
yeah,
like a time limit. Like, okay, I'm gonna do this before this trip.
yeah,
That's
having
very
that
motivating.
is very motivating, and also it's the best motivation to begin with. Going,
Hmm. Oh
that's,
yeah, I miss
that's
traveling.
yeah, oh yeah, it's probably the
We'll
best.
get there. Yeah. I'm not in a time of life that I'd be traveling anyway. And then with COVID, everyone else is
Yeah,
sad. And I'm like, well, I wasn't planning any trips
yeah. No, I had
with
to
two
cancel
small
my trip.
children.
Yeah,
Well,
uh,
yeah. So, yeah, it's disappointing.
yeah,
Where were you going?
Switzerland.
Oh, I've
So I
never
was
been.
actually actually I was flying into and out of Geneva, which is
Mm-hmm.
unusual for me because it's the first time I think that I would have flown out of the same city I was flying into. I
Mm-hmm.
do like an open, I don't do a
Yeah.
circuit like I do an open travel and fly into one
Mm-hmm.
place, fly out of another. Um, but yeah, so I was going to Geneva, and I went to Geneva last year, and I met somebody there well, she's French and Swiss. Like
Mm-hmm.
she identifies as both French and Swiss, but she's a French speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she lives just on the French border, on the French side outside of Geneva. So
Mm-hmm.
I would visit her again, but then go into the mountains and basically hike for 2 weeks. So I had to
Uh,
cancel.
that is so disappointing.
Yeah,
But you'll get back there.
I
I'm
definitely,
dying. I'm dying to go to Switzerland.
yeah. Oh,
I
it's
really
so
want to
beautiful.
go.
Yeah,
I've only had like a layover, so I haven't left the airport.
yeah. I mean,
My,
I feel like I'm stretching it when I say I've been to Switzerland because the first time, um, you know, Mike and I, another friend of ours, and I went
Mhm.
to spend time in Poland, Germany, and Italy. But when we were at Lake Como and we were going to Milan, but we drove through Switzerland. It was like an extra 45-minute drive, but we were like in Switzerland, but we just
Uh-huh.
kind of drove through. And then
Uh-huh.
last year I was in Geneva for a few days, which isn't Switzerland, but it's kind of its own thing. Um, it's its own entity. I mean, it's
Yeah.
French speaking, not German speaking, and also it's, I mean, one of the most internationally like important
Hmm.
cities for political reasons and whatnot. Um,
Yeah.
but I wasn't, but I didn't go out really outside the city. So I was really looking forward to spending, it was like 2.5 weeks really. in
Oh, yeah.
Switzerland. Yeah, next
I
year.
hope you can rebook that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Do you have any?
I have the travel
Yeah. Oh my
voucher.
gosh. Seriously, we're all gonna go crazy if things can't open up within a year. Do you have any language goals going forward?
Um, yeah, so I'm usually looking for new motivations, and this
Mm-hmm.
is one of them. I'm back at Duolingo because of COVID, I stopped. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't done any Duolingo for like 3 months or any other thing. So I want to get back to my German, and I've been, and the way I've done it was by trying to immerse myself as much as possible. So I would like change my phone's language to German, and I would, use German language GPS, and I got pretty good at
Mm-hmm.
following directions in German.
Yeah, it's a great
And
way
just
to do it.
trying to just figure out my phone in
Yep.
German. Um,
I always told my students, my upper level French students, to do that.
oh
They're
yeah,
like, I'm scared, madame. I'm like, just do it.
do it.
You can
It's
always go back.
Yeah, it's really it's worth it. And
Mm-hmm.
half jokingly, but I like watching Peppa Pig because it's kind of my like I'm a little more than a toddler at best in my German,
Right. Yeah, no,
in a way, because I don't speak it on a regular basis. So if I read it, I can maybe understand more of it. But kid shows like that are
kid
such a
shows are fast.
good
Yeah.
way to do it. So
Oh man, I love watching cartoons. Like I can't we show our kids Polish and I'm like, I can't like put them in front of the TV and go do like dishes. I'm like, I need to watch this. This is
oh
my learning time. Like
yeah.
I don't get a quote unquote break from them because I'm like sitting there with them trying to hear everything.
And so that's really, I think, my big goal is to try to get to German more because I mean, like, I get distracted easily. So I just saw that Duolingo released the beta of Finnish, and that's a language I've
Oh.
wanted to learn since high school as well. So I'm really tempted to just start doing Finnish,
Mm-hmm.
but that would just be, another language that I would know a couple hundred words in, or
Dabble.
200 words, and that's it. But so the big challenge for myself is
I'm here for all that.
oh,
Dabble, go for it. That's all
yeah,
I do
yeah,
at this point.
but I would like
Um,
to get better in German to be able to communicate. Um, that would be my goal. My
Is there any other way that you stay motivated other than booking a trip or?
Yeah, my big motivation is travel. That's really my big motivation, because
Mhm.
I'm able to do that. I'm not tied down. Like I don't have kids, which is
Yes.
a big thing because, well, they
Their
require
life
a lot of
sucking.
you.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. And also, when if you do decide to travel, like when you're traveling with a family, that's a whole different logistical ball game and also a whole different financial ball game because
Yeah.
I can try to, couch surf or even just stay at hostels and the costs
Right.
are down. Versus with kids, you just have to. I mean, you can do some hostels that you can book a room in, and they might be a little more affordable than hotels, but
Hmm.
you can't do the same amount of intensity of travel that you do
No, it's
by
not the same.
itself. Yeah,
I
that's really
know.
that's my big motivation. Um,
Yeah. Get all
and
the travel
maybe
in you can.
maybe keeping up with you is the other.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
It's not
get
a
all the
race. It's not a
and
competition.
no, but it is good motivation
Yeah.
because we're
Well,
helping
we're
each
friends
other.
on Duolingo, so keep
Yeah,
those points going up.
right. I think I have more points than you. I think.
Yeah, you probably do. But yeah, some good healthy
No,
competition is always
yeah.
it's always
Um,
fun.
but more seriously, like the just having somebody else who is also doing that is big motivation.
Hmm.
Whether you're because I don't necessarily have a competitive like nature, but I do have a very like strong cooperative nature. So
Hmm.
so seeing other people do it, that motivates me a lot to just improve myself and then help them
Yeah.
improve.
Yeah, I've been finding a lot of good YouTube videos and then like people who talk about learning languages or
Oh,
learning, language coaches, and then it's just like watch a little video, like five
yeah,
strategies to do something, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get
yeah,
the
yeah.
notebook.
Write it down.
I like
Um,
to write things out still, which is like, I don't know, I just
well, I mean,
enjoy pen to paper.
just the act of writing things down helps your brain memorize it. So even if you don't then necessarily reference it again, like
Right.
it's still a more like you've still done more
Concrete.
than just read it.
Right. Yeah. Like I like all the technology. I like all the apps. That's all. It's all great, but like when I'm learning something, like I still have to like get the pen and paper. And people in the Polish classes were like, "Wow, you're
Oh,
so serious. You're like over there with your notebook." I'm like, "I know, but I don't know. I concentrate better."
it helps. Yeah, it definitely
So,
helps. And I'm not very good at that, but yeah,
mm, yeah, I'm
but
trying to get better.
I mean, I do highly suggest that though. Like, yeah, definitely get your pen and paper out and use all the resources because the online world offers you all the resources. I mean, lately,
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, I listened to a lot of music in Finnish just because I do,
Hmm.
because I like it, not necessarily because I'm trying to learn it. But there was on Spotify, I was just listening to like a mix of things on Spotify, and at some point a Finnish translation of Edgar Allan Poe started playing, like an audiobook of it,
Wow.
and
Hmm.
and
I
I'm
love
thinking
Edgar Allan Poe.
like, yeah, and so do I, but like, I'm not gonna understand it in Finnish. I never
Yeah.
studied language. I know like 5 words, um, maybe 20 if I really think about it hard.
Hmm.
But I still ended up listening to like the whole 10-minute clip because it's just such a gorgeous language. But what I'm trying to say is that, even if you just have Spotify for music, like chances are if you're trying to learn a language, there will be audiobooks just available on Spotify,
Hmm.
and your library is likely to have a fair amount of things depending on the language you're trying to learn.
Yep.
Especially
And
the
we're
big,
lucky where we live, you can do
yeah,
interlibrary loan and
oh,
order it from a different library. So
yeah,
if your library has that, that's helpful.
oh yeah. And with these languages, like if you're trying to learn, like I don't know, Latvian, you might have a harder time, but
Hmm.
if you're trying to learn one of the big languages, whether it's Spanish or Mandarin, or even Arabic, um,
Yeah.
I say even Arabic because it's a little more like farther away from us, but it is a very popular language, and
Hmm.
so you can find a fair amount of resources. So
Yeah,
use it.
libraries are great. It's a great resource.
Yeah,
Because I'm
I
like,
have to give
especially
a
if you're
shout
just dabbling, I don't want to spend a lot of money. I'm not sure if I want the book. You can
out.
get it from the library, see if it's worth it.
And then you
All the
can,
audio books.
yeah, then you can invest in it.
Hmm. That's great. Lots of resources. Um, we've talked about a couple, but do you have any proud bilingual moment or any
Um, yeah,
tradition or something that you are able to partake in because you are bilingual?
yeah. Well, that's an interesting one because I mean we do all the Polish like traditions. I mean like Vigilia is the big one, right? The Polish
Hmm.
Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Dinner. And what's great about that, I think, even as an adult, is that it's better than how we do it in the U.S. because you get to open your presents just Christmas Eve. You don't have to wait until the morning to open them.
Yeah.
So you get them like
And you
so
can
much
sleep
early,
in.
and you can sleep in because you've already opened them the night before, and
There's not
like
like
this is really
kids
good.
waking you up at 5 a.m. to
Yeah,
open their gifts.
yeah, like you already have all your toys, the night before. So it
Hmm.
might be hard to put your kids to sleep, but once
Right.
they're out. Um, but but other than that, like what I when I was thinking about this is that it, it's not like I take trips because I know the language. Like I can go to Poland and I can obviously do anything I want there, and
Hmm.
pretty much blend in. Um,
Within legal limitations, but yes,
yes, like I won't be walking around
anything.
and people won't necessarily know I'm a tourist, is what I'm saying. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, and so that's what I mean. I'll blend in. But what learning languages has given me the most, I think, is that I got to the point where I am very comfortable being in a country, by myself, surrounded by a language I don't know, and not knowing anybody. And I'm
Yeah.
comfortable in that situation. So what I think by extension that leads to is that, when, and I'm not going to get political, I swear, but it's not that type of show. But when that type of thing comes up with, like, for example, like I'll never be uncomfortable with the idea of open borders.
Hmm.
Like I'm not saying let's do it because this is not the show for it, but I'm saying like I can't be scared into.
You're not afraid of other
Yeah, yeah.
people.
Like I can't be scared of others because I don't know the language they speak or the country they're from.
Right.
And that I think is a great gift. That's a big opening.
Yeah.
So even if I don't speak the language, like I'm
Feel
not saying,
comfortable being around them.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like I'd be able to just get up today, pack up, and go to a different part of the world and start living there. Like,
Right. Yeah.
not,
Travel is different than living, but still, it
yeah,
takes an open-mindedness to be able to go somewhere and be comfortable with not understanding everything.
yeah.
I think
And
so
what
many people are afraid of not knowing 100% what is that person saying? What is that person saying?
and
Being
sometimes
kind of paranoid.
when I'm with people, like some friends of mine who they speak a language I don't, and then some of them will speak the language to each other, and then somebody else might be uncomfortable and say like, hey, he doesn't understand it, and like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's obviously nice because you want to include me in the conversation, but I would never be uncomfortable with somebody speaking a different language in front of me because of like that you just do you. It might be
Right.
easier for you to communicate amongst yourself for a little bit.
Right.
I don't
If
need
they're
to
not
be a part
talking
of that.
to you.
Yeah. I don't need to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a huge issue. There was actually, did you ever see that viral video from Amherst of a woman that told two
No.
Chinese students to speak English?
Oh my. No, I didn't
Yeah,
see that.
there was a viral video that came out
That's
of a
bad.
town near us that yeah, she yelled at these two on a bus, two Chinese people speaking to themselves, and there's a lot
Wow.
of Chinese students up in that area.
Yeah.
And this other guy was like, "Don't tell them. Like, they're just
Yeah.
having a conversation on their own. It doesn't even involve you, lady." And
Yeah.
like they called the cops, and the bus pulled over, and like somebody was filming the whole time.
Oh wow. I did not know about
So
that.
yes, very, very, even in our very liberal
I mean,
North New
chances are I
England.
know that person.
Hmm.
That
Well, you should
person would
find
be
the
a
video.
library user. And I would know them
Right.
because I know
Right.
a bunch of people that would probably maybe do that. And that's
Yeah.
not something to be proud of, maybe, but oh my, yeah.
So unfortunately, it's a very real
I
sentiment
mean,
that people
I
feel.
do like somebody that I know. As I said, like I played music and I studied music. So my old trumpet teacher's friend posted a video when he was on campus, and
Mm-hmm.
he has a baseball cap from a music fest that he did in Pakistan, and
Oh.
so he went there and he played music with all these people from around the world, and it was a great time. And the cap was I forget the name of the music festival, but in on the front of the cap it said the name in English, and on the back it said it in Urdu, which
Mm-hmm.
is obviously not like a Latin script, like we wouldn't recognize
Right.
the letters. Um, and he was like fiddling with his radio, and somebody started berating him to go back to his country. Which, first of all, like he's an American, he lives here, but he was also he was very outspoken about how that is so wrong. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
something he usually has to deal with because he's a white man, American living in America, like that. He's
Mm-hmm.
not faced these situations, but because he was
It's
fiddling
amazing
with
the
his radio, like,
assumptions people
yeah,
make just off of the hat.
yeah,
But I think even though this isn't a political podcast at all, it is a podcast about bilingualism and multilingualism, multiculturalism, and being open to other people. I mean, that's why we learn these languages so we can talk to people
and
that speak them,
and
and that we
understand.
can get to know them and their culture and yeah, understand them. So I think even though it may not be a political show, I think it is an important part of what we're trying to do. When I
Yeah,
say the future is bilingual, I hope that that means a more open future,
yes,
more open-minded. So,
and that would be a much brighter future, I think.
mhm.
You have
Just
this
to know
wonderful.
more and not be afraid. I feel like a lot of those people's reactions are out of fear for the
It is,
unknown,
yeah,
or some
and
possibility that this could be related to some terrorist activity. Like it
yeah,
goes so far, and who knows what they're thinking. But
yeah, and I mean it's an emotional topic because like
mhm,
fear is a strong emotion, and
yes,
it's hard to be brought out of fear through like intellectual discussion. So, but like there have been studies that have shown that like if you just know somebody from a certain group, like the chances that you will fear that group like half, just
hmm
half. just by
Yep.
knowing somebody from that group.
That is, it's amazing.
So
it's true.
that's why it's so important to do these.
Kind of takes the mask off of it. Like,
Yeah.
it's not so scary. They're just humans like us.
Oh yeah, and they're scared too.
Right. Especially if they're the minority in this country.
Yeah.
They're the one foreigner.
They move here and they might not speak the language, and they're surrounded by people they don't know and a language they don't know. Yeah,
and like, these are big topics, but like when you read, and as you know, specializing in like children's literature, like we're trying to teach these to our children from the youngest age we can, even the picture books. Like, I know you gave us this amazing book about different hats, all the different religious hats. My kids both love that. They love that book, by the way. It's very simple. It just has different people wearing their different hats.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you don't have to be afraid if you see someone wearing a kippah or wearing oh my gosh, now I can't even think of what it's called, the Muslim hijab.
Yes. Yeah.
Just kind of normalizing it. Like, these are people wearing different things on their head. Sometimes we wear glasses on our face, like they're just things.
Yeah.
So it's very important.
And and picture books have been making some progress, but it's up to the librarians and teachers and parents to also sift through and look for them to show that representation to their kids.
Yeah, and I feel like we are in a very, maybe the revolution, I don't know if it's died down. I have been following a lot more people with different books on diversity, and I'm hoping that this wave continues and gets stronger, because I know after George Floyd and a bunch of the protests and things, people were getting much more into just being, conscious about getting books with people who, they're not that are not white or animals. How many children's books are just people who are white?
I'm trying to remember the exact numbers because I know them. I obviously look at those statistics, but
yes, I've seen the statistics.
It's definitely over half that are white or animals, and animals are by and far white too. The representations of animals are like a white family. They just happen to be, bears.
Exactly.
But it's up to us, like, as once again, like the librarians, the teachers, to make sure it's not performative. But we build these. I mean, it's almost ridiculous to call them radical ideas into our structure and policies to make sure that we offer a more diverse view of the world. Like, people should have access to drinking water. Like, that's not, why is that radical?
Why is that even a discussion?
Right. Yeah.
And just to normalize it, like, if we looked at statistics, like, this is what our country looks like. So why do the books not represent that?
And that's a big I mean, the portrayal of Native Americans has been also very limited, and so but it's not like it's not being published. It's just that we have to make an effort to make sure we find it and represent it. And there have been some incredible children's books, representing that, and not always about pain. Like, like your African American history can't be about slavery and civil rights. Like, it has to be about, kids just going about their day being happy kids.
Right.
That's important.
All right. Before we end, can you teach us a word or phrase in one of your languages?
Yeah, I'll go for a somewhat easy one, and there's a story behind it, because the word yapko, which means apple, because a number of years ago, maybe, when my nephew was 2 or 3, when he was first starting to learn to speak, we were at the store, and I don't even know how we got onto this conversation, but I said, Oli, powiedz jabłko, which means, like, Oli, say apple, powiedz jabłko. And he goes, apple. And I said, nie, jabłko. Apple. Nie, jabłko. Apple. And he was getting so frustrated with me because he answered
He was saying it.
Yes, he was saying it. So what is happening to me? That he wouldn't.
That's awesome.
So to me, the word yapko has become symbolic in a bilingual context.
Wow, we had a moment similar to that with Isabella the other day. My mom was over and there was like a caterpillar. So she was teaching them the word for caterpillar.
Yeah.
And Isa was like kotek, which means like kitty cat, because she heard the beginning of the word was caterpillar.
Yeah.
So, like she just heard cat and she said kotek. And I was like, oh my God, you're so smart. You heard cat, but no, there's a whole word to it.
Yeah.
So that was just really cute. She's only a year and a half, but I was like, oh my God, your little brain is, chugging along there.
That is
I
absolutely
just thought that was funny.
Well, because we always, like, the example is usually like, you have to learn to say cat before you say catastrophe. But I like the example of, you have to say cat before you say caterpillar. Like, it's a more pleasant, visual.
And there's lots of things like that. We always joke in Polish how there's words that start with the sound nie, which means no. So like niedźwiedź, nie topesz. And Mariusz will always be like, dźwiedź, topesz, like just as a joke, like say it without the nie. So we always joke about things like that. But
I can tell you my favorite untranslatable word.
Okay.
It might be a conversation in itself, but it's the word żal. That is one of my favorite words in Polish. And
so I mean, it's not regret.
Oh, it's a very complicated emotion, and to me, it's always going to be tied with Chopin, because you can't play Chopin without żal. But it's more than regret. It's more than like nostalgia or like the feeling of something irredeemably lost, and almost an acceptance that it's forever gone. And there's like a sense of pity, but there's some anger in it because you don't really want to do it. It's
there's a lot of emotion in that one.
There's a lot of emotion.
Small word.
So yeah, and it's 3 letters. It's so tiny, and yet it's so one of the powerful emotions. It's not just regret or pity. It's all of these other things. Like it's rage and it's anger on top of on top of regret and nostalgia and feelings of sadness. It's a very complicated word.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the word los, which is like your lot in life, or like your destiny. What is los? Like destiny?
Like, right? Like fortune?
Your fate or something. Fate. Maybe that's the word. That's a good word.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've learned lots of words through songs, because whenever I hear certain words, like the song that I learned it through comes to me. So I think that's a great way to learn languages. Listen to songs, because then you hear it naturally, kind of how people would say it, and in a context.
And you also, songs are something you naturally go back to time and time again.
And get stuck in your head.
Yeah. Like you don't necessarily want to reread the same grammar chapter in a book, but you'll listen to
or even a book.
Yeah.
I'm not one for rereading. Once I've read a book, I'm like, I know it. I don't rewatch shows. I don't know. There's just too much out there. I don't want to rewatch.
It's true. I did that for many years, but maybe I've read enough books now that I go back once in a while. And once in a while I reread some I've read before. And it's always interesting to reread things you read as a child or a teenager and see like how differently you're looking at it.
I think maybe something from I have a few books from my early college years that I'm like, I've started rereading one in French just to get back into French.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not part of my life right now. But maybe childhood books would be interesting. But things that I've read kind of in my late 20s to now, like I have no interest in. Maybe that's maybe later down the road.
They're very recent. Yeah, they're very recent.
Too recent.
You haven't matured enough past that point to really see them much differently.
To learn anything else.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marcin, for talking with me. This was very insightful. Probably will be the longest show I will publish so far.
Yeah.
So if you're still listening, thank you for sticking with us through all of our twists and turns and politics.
But it's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed it. And as you've mentioned, like we could go on for a very long time. So
yes, and
out of respect for our listeners.
And I will hopefully convince you to come back and talk another time.
Thank you. I think I would really love that.
That'd be wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
And talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Ciao.
So thank you for listening all the way through to my interview with Marcin. I hope that you got something out of our discussion. And if you'd like to share it, you can find me at The Future is Bilingual on Instagram, no spaces or anything, or you can send me an email at tfibpodcast@gmail.com and let me know what you thought. Also, I'm always looking for more bilingual people to interview. So if you are interested, again, contact me in one of those two ways and let me know. And I'd love to speak with you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.